It was 4 years ago, back in 2015, that Hideo Kojima left Konami and became independent. In that time, fans have been patiently waiting to find out what Death Stranding would be and if it could meet their expectations of Kojima's legacy. The game is typical Kojima amped up to 11, and I find myself enjoying my time with the game, but not loving it either. This is a review of my first 20 hours with Death Stranding. Death Stranding takes place in a world where a disaster named the Death Stranding partially merged the worlds of the living and the dead, causing the planet to be covered in creatures named beached things, or BTs for short. In the aftermath, the United States became a post-apocalypse land where civilization has been spread thin and far. You play as Sam Porter Bridges, played by Norman Reedus, who is basically a post-apocalypse postman. The basic plot is Sam is tasked by the President, played by Lindsay Wagner, who has had some seriously aging work done, with travelling across America, uniting cities, outposts and people under the chiral network and bringing her body back to the Oval Office. At least that's the basics of what I understand from the first 20 hours. I've been playing through the story well into Chapter 3, exploring the world, doing both story and side missions, and I barely know much else. In typical Kojima fashion, the story is very slow to start and only picked up the pace a bit as Chapter 3 starts. The plot is kept to a minimum outside of the initial cutscenes, some sparse codec conversations, and little tidbits of information after completing some deliveries. This does make the progression of the game feel really slow, even if you spend hours doing everything you can, like I have. This shouldn't deter you from playing the game though, as despite its relatively simple gameplay loop, the world is very enthralling, and pulls you in the more you explore it. Seeing how spread out the world is, and as you make the journey to connect everything, you can really appreciate the world and atmosphere. Even if you see the odd NPC porter or face off against the rogue mules, you really feel a sense of isolation when playing. But that sense is one of the reasons why the game has an online component, and has tools and structures built by other players left around. The chiral network, which is the in-game term for the online, connects you with people you've never met and helps build a real sense of community by having others help you out and you helping others out with left behind equipment, vehicles and structures. There is also a like system for the player-built structures and tools, which really adds to the social interaction aspect of the game. Each time you boot the game up after a session, you get a summary of how many likes you received since last time, and if other players have used the routes you laid down. This feature really enforces the work you do in your world is just as important for helping others in their games. As you play the role of basically your local postal courier, there is the matter of traversal, and for the majority of these first hours you are walking everywhere. You go back and forth multiple times between cities and outposts you visit, and whilst the scenery is amazing to look at, it can take a long time to complete some deliveries, with some taking upwards of 45 minutes. This changes just before Chapter 3, where you find an old trike that you can bring back to life to help you move around, and then in the latter half of Chapter 3 that I have reached, you unlock the ability to fabricate your own vehicles. You can also unlock the ability to make powered skeletons to help you carry more and move easier, as well as floating carriers that you can ride like a hoverboard. The game isn't just about deliveries, and there are stealth and combat mechanics as well. In my time with the game, I've encountered the mysterious BTs and the crazy mules on my route, and I had to sneak past or take them out depending on how I choose to act and depending on resources. Should you try to take a BT out, use grenades made from your own bodily fluids, and can even use the bowler gun. Dealing with mules is much simpler, as you can sneak past them or fight back using Sam's fists, or even some of the items you've been tasked to deliver to knock them out. You can also sneak up on them and use some rope, aptly named a strand, to deal with them, or use the bowler gun to tie them up. The combat at this point feels like Kojima's previous work with the Metal Gear Solid series, but isn't one of the game's key points. You are just a courier after all. The game is also a testament to the amazing engine that was used to make it. The Decima engine, developed by Guerrilla Games, is really put to work and delivers some striking landscapes and detail in the character models. The star-studded cast are recreated amazingly, and even the monster energy cans in your private room are detailed enough for you to read the back of them. Sadly though, there is no visible PlayStation 4 Pro support outside of 4K resolution, unlike in Horizon Zero Dawn, which also uses the engine, which has a frame rate option as well. Death Stranding is, at its core, just a walking simulator, but at 20 hours in, there is an intriguing story about what caused the Death Stranding, what the BTs are, and reconnecting the country. I've only just scratched the surface of the story, but gameplay-wise it feels like I've pretty much seen all there is. The simple loop of accepting orders and delivering them, whilst repetitive, feels good and is nice to relax with. The vehicles I've unlocked make crossing distances fun, but only on roads or relatively flat surfaces. The sneaking and combat are typical Kojima, but in a good familiar way. The ability to build structures, place ladders or ropes for other players to use, and the like system when online really builds a sense of a shared yet individual world. Despite the slow build-up, I do find myself enjoying Death Stranding, and as a fan of Hideo Kojima's previous works, I would easily recommend it. However, this recommendation is only if you are prepared for a game where his tendency to be pedantic over gameplay and overly long build-up to plot progression is more prevalent than ever before. Death Stranding gets a 7 out of 10.